It's Friday. We are under 100 days until the start of the football season. We might be, we might not be. That was just an arbitrary thing I said. I think we are. We're close.
We are. It is true. We are under 100.
All right, so this is the fantasy football universe. I am Nick from CWE. He is BC Steele. The best part about it is I'm doing the fingers like this, like I'm introducing you. Wait until the video comes out and I'm doing it to the side that you're not on, so that I just look like an absolute moron. Hey, there he is over there.
Awesome. Technology, a little confusing, isn't it?
It evades me. I don't know. I see myself in a little picture in the bottom of the screen. That's the only thing I'm looking at. I don't know why. But it's amazing, and I think I've said this quite a bit in basically every piece of NFL fantasy football, anything that I've put out, is that to me, for like the past 3 years, football has just been boring to me. It's been something that you have to do as a fantasy player because that's where the big money is at. So, obviously that doesn't, hold true for season-long leagues because you pay 20, 25, 35, 50, 1,000, whatever. You know what you're getting into. But in terms of DFS, if you're really trying to go after the big money, it's in football. The Super Bowl last year really changed a lot for me. And it's so weird because I think it irritated a lot of people, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because it's the Patriots, and they'll never do anything right. They're the consummate evil of professional sports. Golden State is creeping up on them because apparently if you're a basketball team, you should just not sign good players to your team. Once the fan base of everybody else's team thinks you have enough good players, you should move on. You shouldn't try to improve your team any further. That's what I've learned this season in professional basketball. But this draft, how these teams set up, the free agency, everything leads into the direction where this year in the NFL is set up to just be so good.
That's the hope. One thing I will say, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, I know we'll address this position eventually, but are we seeing a running back resurgence, or was last year just kind of a one-year wonder type as far as the position goes?
I don't really think so. I got a good running back stat. That's a callback to the One League episode where they run into the Matthew Berry and he has a LeGarrette Blount stat, and it's so weird because you hear yourself say that, but out of the other side of your mouth, not you personally, the other side of your mouth, you're like, more teams are going to a running back by committee approach. So it's this interesting dynamic where if you can figure out going into the season who are going to be bell cows and which teams are going to have running backs by committee, then you're set, right? You're looking at the RBBC in daily fantasy in terms of maybe you can stream a guy like Mark Ingram because Sean Payton hates him. But just seriously, I'm going to take a look at our rankings, and this is a quarterback rankings episode. We'll do the running backs next, but like David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, LaShawn McCoy, Melvin Gordon, Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi, Leonard Fournette, Isaiah Crowell, Todd Gurley, maybe Carlos Hyde, maybe Lamar Miller. All of those guys that I mentioned literally don't have anybody really behind them. And this is the dynamic that I think is shifting. You could I personally think Devonta Freeman this year, with Shanahan gone, I think he's going to be a bigger running back play than he has in years past. So I guess the whole thing with the running backs is we've dealt with a couple of these teams having situations where they were using a committee of running backs. They appear to be breaking away from that a little bit, and thus now you have a larger amount of running backs who you can look at and say, okay, I'm not absolutely sick to my stomach at thinking about taking 2 running backs with my first 2 picks.
Well, and even if you do want to wait, there are some situations where there's not really a lot behind them. The biggest example I give is Amir Abdullah. Detroit didn't go for a running back, which a lot have predicted. The Giants have Paul Perkins. There's a lot of hype with him now saying that he could be A three down back, obviously a conversation for a later time, but running back not as dire as it used to be, and the position that's never dire because there's always value is the quarterback, which for those of us that understand the football game, kind of important.
Little bit. It was interesting trying to do these rankings because I'm in the process of building my algorithm in terms of predictive of 2017. This is how everybody does it. You know, the days are gone where people just sit down and look at the list and say, I like this guy first and this guy second. So I'm in the process of building that, but this is exactly how I did this list. I just looked at all the players at the position, kind of looked at a few different things. What is their offensive line situation? What is their wide receiver situation? What is their tight end, running back? What is their defense situation? Like Dallas, we'll get to it, but Dallas is a perfect example. Their defense wouldn't shock me if it finished 32nd this year. As of right now, they are starting 2 rookies at cornerback. I don't care what round they were drafted in or how they project. 2 rookies are starting a quarterback. So I think that this is a reasonable list as of right now. A lot is going to change. There's already things, since this is the first thing I did, it's now like 2 weeks old. There's already some changes I would consider making. But in your opinion, do you put anyone other than Aaron Rodgers at number 1?
I think you can make the argument for Tom Brady. I definitely think you can, just because of, well, one, the fact that he's Tom Brady, and 2, he'll have Gronk back healthy. If Gronk goes down, he loses Martellus Bennett, but they have Dwayne Allen, so they're not really losing a ton in terms of that. They have 1,700 running backs that they can throw to, which good luck drafting a New England running back. Seems to be Mike Gillislee right now, but I'm sure that'll change week 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12. It'll be somebody different every week. But I think you can make the argument for Tom Brady. Outside of that, I really don't know who you would make the argument for at number 1. I can give you a 1B scenario, but I think it's Aaron Rodgers and maybe Tom Brady is the top quarterback.
Well, that's pretty much how my list starts. I really don't want to say that I gave much credence into thinking about Brady at number 1. I mean, for me, I looked at it and it was just, okay, it's Aaron Rodgers. Because when you look at what Rodgers has around him, he's literally has 2 potential top 10 receivers this year in Devontae Adams and Jordy Nelson. When taking into consideration that I think like the last 10 games of last year, I'm pretty sure the stat is, because I've seen it a couple of places a couple of different times, but I think the only people that outproduced Devontae Adams the last 10 weeks of the season were like Julio Jones and Odell Beckham Jr. So
yeah, he really came on in the second half.
I think he's got the weapons. Bringing in Martellus Bennett is the best. This is potentially the best tight end, period, that Aaron Rodgers has ever played with. Jermichael Finley was good, but he was kind of like he had one season, never really lived up to it before or after that. So yeah, I mean, Brady has Gronk. I'm a big Gronk buyer this year. One of my strategies is, and I hate to do this, but because I know his ADP is going to jump as it gets closer to the season and people presumably see that he's healthy. But right now, you can get him late second, early third rounds in a lot of cases. I'm jumping in on Gronk. I might buy into some leagues early that start like the draft is now, just so that I could get Gronk there. Maybe I'm crazy. I've never been a Gronk buyer before, to be completely honest with you. But he does give Brady slew of weapons. We know Brandon Cooks, Malcolm Mitchell, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, Chris Hogan. Just an embarrassment of riches again in New England. Beyond that, you kind of segued a little bit. Where do you go beyond that? I think there is a couple of names. I have Andrew Luck at 3. What do you say about that?
Andrew Luck, I'm still a little worried about the offense. We know he's gotten beat up. Obviously, receiving, he has the talent there, but a little bit beat up as far as their offense offensive line. Lost my train of thought there. Also, you have a 104-year-old. I shouldn't knock Frank Gore because he's only a few years older than us. So let me rephrase that. You have spry, young, fresh Frank Gore in the backfield. But the guy that I'm going to put number 3, and you can see behind me my Steelers memorabilia, and I know this makes me a homer, but hear me out. I would actually put Ben Roethlisberger as number 3, and here's why. He's got, obviously, Antonio Brown, the best wide receiver, in my opinion, or top 3 in all of football. And I don't think that's in regards to talent. I think that's in routes ran, the fact that he has a guy like Ben, and the fact that he can make plays once he gets the ball. He's also going to get Martavis Bryant back, which there is a risk there. Reports are that he's doing well, so he has that. Sammy Coates is going to be healed from his injury, hopefully, knock on wood. So he's going to have a healthy Sammy Coates. He's going to have Darius Hayward-Bay, who's just going to run down the field. May only catch 1 of 3 balls that are thrown to him, but he has that. And he has the best running back in the league, Le'Veon Bell, who, and this is me just pulling this out of my hoo-ha, but may run the most routes for any running back. There was some stat I read about running more routes per game than any other third behind like Jarvis Landry or ahead of Jarvis, something like that, that I read earlier. So he's got a lot of weapons. On top of that, the defensive line is very good. The secondary is suspect. We're going to have to see really what happens. The Steelers' defense, I've seen some people giving it a B plus and other people giving it a D minus. So that, I think, is going to depend on Ben Roethlisberger's value. Because if they get ahead by more than 2 scores, I think you're going to have the Le'Veon Bell, or even the James Conner show, because he can just pound out the clock. So that might be my argument there. Because aside from injury, I think he is the safest quarterback that you can have. Because when he's not in there, the offense dies. I mean, no disrespect to Landry Jones, but he is the cog in that offense that makes everything work.
So, just to put into perspective, he finished with the 17th most fantasy points last year.
Really?
It's a hell of a jump. Yeah, I viewed him the same way until I started doing my rankings. I'm 10 spots behind you with Ben. I fear Le'Veon Bell. Like, there's not many players that really affect the other people on their team, but guys like David Johnson, guys like Ezekiel Elliott last year, guys like Le'Veon Bell, they've really just changed the game so dramatically. You have 2 games going against the Browns. You know that those are probably going to be Le'Veon Bell games. One of them could be a Ben Roethlisberger game because it's at home, and we know how Ben looks home versus road. I agree with all of your points. Weapons are there, everything. It just, like you said, it just really comes down to if that defense is functioning, if the defense looks good, if it is toward that top 10 in the league, they're not asking Ben to do much because they want to save him for the playoffs. So that's my apprehension. That's why on my list you find him at 13 as opposed to 3. Now with Andrew Luck, here's why a lot of these guys I was going higher, like Luck, Breeze, Wilson. You look at Luck, and Frank Gore, for what it's worth, finishes in standard scoring as the number 12 running back last year. 2015, I believe he finished like either top 10 or it was a similar position. No, he was 11. So, like, we've been pushing this Frank Gore is old narrative forever. And then he just goes out there and he's like, okay, I'm not that old, guys. Now, yeah, that's going to catch up eventually, and that's why I am pushing Luck up to 3rd. Luck finished 4th last year in fantasy points scored. Offensive line situation's not good. You got Kamar Aiken, you got Dante Moncrief, T.Y. Hilton, Jack Doyle, who's going to go absolutely ridiculously overdrafted for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that he caught some touchdown passes in an offense that runs 2 tight end sets more than any other team in the NFL. You're going to get consistently disappointed when Eric swoops in and catches all the touchdowns. I don't know if you noticed what I did there, but his last name is Swoop. I said Eric Swoop, so it's kind of a cool thing. Yeah, the golf clap, I appreciate it. Speaking of golf, let's see what these boneheads are doing over here. Anyway, one thing at a time. So, yeah, that's why I have him there. I have Drew Brees at 4, Russell Wilson topping off my top 5. First of all, with Drew Brees, what's your take on the impact of Adrian Peterson on this Saints team in 2017?
As far as Drew Brees and Adrian Peterson, and even Mark Ingram for that matter, who is hated by Sean Payton, I think it's to be determined. I'm not saying that I don't think Drew Brees could finish as the 4th overall, but we don't know what Adrian Peterson has. Last year he played, one game, maybe 1.5, and he was hurt. He also missed 2 years ago when he took the switch to his child. So we really don't know what we're going to get with that. Also, the loss of Brandon Cooks certainly doesn't help. They do have Michael Thomas there. And they have
Ted Ginn,
Willie Snead. That was the name I was thinking of. Let me throw you a guy out there that he's 10 in your rankings, researchfantasy.com, by the way. Cheap little plug there. See how we do that? But you have him number 10, but he's got some pretty interesting weapons, and that's Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more likely that he finishes above or below his number 10 spot? You look pained right now.
Below. Because I think this is one of those situations where it's like, it looks on paper like the perfect storm, because now you've got a number 2 receiver in Deshaun Jackson. Now you've got O.J. Howard as a tight end, so you have O.J. Howard who blocks. Let's get that straight. That's what he's there for right now. He's got to learn to really catch a lot better. People forget that other than in the championship games for Alabama, he was with Clay Thompson before the finals on the other side of the milk carton. Like, this dude did nothing. That's what people tend to forget who didn't watch college football and just listen to what Mel Kiper and his hair said on draft day.
His hair is immaculate.
I love it. Yeah, but and then they got Chris Godwin in the flex. My concern is what if the Doug Martin hype is real? Like, touchdowns, far as I'm concerned, most unpredictable element of fantasy football. What if Martin somehow ends up with 14 or 16 touchdowns? That, and we've seen this happen again and again and again. Guy runs downfield, guy gets tackled at the 1 yard line, the 2 yard line. Well, first down, you're probably not going to be passing the ball. Winston's probably not going to be running the ball. They're handing the ball off to whoever it is. It doesn't even matter if it's Doug Martin. It could be you or I, but the point being is I do have some concern there. Now, that is a little bit of a hypocritical take, because you could really up and down all of these guys and say that about them. But I think that, looking at where we finished last year, finished at 10th, that's where I really do see him comfortable at this year. I don't think that that's overvaluing him. I don't think that's undervaluing him. What do you think? Are you more of like Winston in the top 5 kind of guy?
I actually do, only because I don't think the Doug Martin hype is going to be all that great. He's also suspended for the first few games. I believe it's the first 4. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the first 2 or first 4 games of the season. So that's going to play a factor into it. A guy that I like his ranking. I like him at 6 overall, but I'm the Winston thing. I wanted to hype Big Ben because I'm a big stupid homer. And another guy that I wanted to say that I think will fall out of the top 10 is Cam Newton. If you've seen the meme where Kelvin Benjamin is called Queen Latifah, I think that's an insult to Queen Latifah. I love her music and her acting. I have Last Holiday on DVD. So, if the producers of that are looking to make a sequel, I'd love to be in it. But I think he's going to falter. I don't think he can take that punishment. He lost Ted Ginn, which the jokes made, well, what's Ted Ginn worth? But he's proven that Ted Ginn has value, especially as, even a deep threat. Kelvin Benjamin looks like Eddie Lacy. Well, yeah. But he looks fat, for no better way to put it. He's in better shape than I am, although I have been losing weight. So he's in better shape. And Devin Funchess, not a number 1, at least not to me. Greg Olsen is there. That helps. And they do have McCaffrey that they drafted, but I could see Cam Newton falling down. I really, really could. I could see him falling down that ranking and be a guy that you take hoping that you have a QB1, and he ends up pushing mid to high QB2 numbers.
Yeah, this is definitely not something that I'm completely sold on. in the early going, I just think that I don't see them playing smart with Cam Newton. I know that might not be fair to the coaching staff, but I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I think that you're going to see the same Cam Newton where he's going to take a bunch of ill-advised runs. His draft position currently, I think, is what has my eye the most. He is the 55th player off the board. Now, with that being said, though, I think it's just like 5 quarterbacks being taken ahead of him. So we're not talking about a ton of quarterbacks going off the board ahead of him. I'm looking at his upside. Perhaps it's the DFS player in me that's saying, like, this is way too cheap. This is a buy spot. He finished so bad last year. He was just a top half of the league quarterback, which, you know, when we're saying stuff like that, the bottom half of the league quarterbacks were Derek Carr, Ben Roethlisberger, Elite Joe Flacco, Tyrod Taylor. So, like, there were names in there that when you hear it, you're like, Derek Carr was, like, the 16th ranked guy. Ben was 17. But yeah, I think that he could be in for a resurgence, and ultimately, a lot of this is just going to come down to at the beginning of every month, I'm rolling a new list out. So I'm reading what beat writers have to say. Right now, I'm not listening to them. Now is a good time for me to just go on like a 30-second rant here, but please shut your mouth about this guy looks great running around in shorts and a t-shirt. Literally read a report today where someone was like, Alshon Jeffrey has not wowed in Eagles OTA. And I'm thinking to myself, dude's always injured. What do you want this guy to do? Should this dude be doing the Corey Coleman and jumping in for passes and landing on balls so he misses time? Dude doesn't have to impress anybody. You're some guy, you're a pencil jockey sitting there writing in your little notebook about how an elite athlete who does what, if you're looking at role reversals, Alshon Jeffrey is more likely to be able to pen an article for a newspaper than the dude who pens a newspaper is able to get on the field and play like Alshon Jeffrey. So dude needs to slow his roll, first of all. But the moral I'm trying to get at is I don't want to hear about this guy who looks great at the beginning of June. It is absolutely irrelevant. So I'm trying to bide my time and really see how things pan out. The preseason says a lot. Training camps will say more. Won't say the whole story, but ultimately I'm a risk taker, and I like taking a risk on a guy who can come in and do well. Finishing out the top 10, we've got Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan. We've already taught Jameis Winston. Now, in our fantasy league, I traded Dak Prescott
to an awesome, handsome, good-looking man.
Was it you?
It was me.
No, see, I don't even know what's going on around me at all points in time. But
yes, me.
So you'll love this. Perhaps I was a little bit too quick to do that. And here's why I said, and it was done like right after it was not, maybe at the end of this, I don't remember when it happened.
It was probably January or February.
All right. So
it wasn't recent.
Right. A lot has changed since then. Ronald Leary gone from the Cowboys offensive line. Doug Free retired. Might have got those mixed up. I don't think so, though. By my grading, this Dallas offensive line is markedly worse than it was last year. Now, will it stay that way through camp? I don't know. It could be that they're 90% of what they were last year. But all I'm saying is the players who are replacing who left are not nearly as good.
Agreed.
So I think you're dealing with a situation where it's going to affect Ezekiel Elliott. I have no issues taking Ezekiel Elliott within the top 3, though admittedly, I'm still not going that route. Missed out the first year, don't really feel bad about it, not going back the second year. Here's the thing I mentioned already. Dallas defense, ratchet. I mean, I think that's a word. I don't know if I'm using it right. I'm just kidding. I know I'm saying what I want to say.
Hey, we're hip.
Dallas, yeah, we're on fleek. Clearly, I'm wearing a sweater in June. I'm clearly in with the times.
I don't know what on fleek means. I literally have I've heard it. I used to think it was an app, and somebody goes, "Nah, man, it means when your stuff is on point, I'm like, oh, on point, that I get.
Like when I have, well, this is a PG show. I'll leave my anyway. Yeah. So, my take on it is Dallas going to have a bad defense, especially in the secondary. This Dallas team, it might be a better strategy this year to center your drafting around Dak Prescott and Dez Bryant than it is Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know if that's how it's going to pan out or not, but I'm higher on Dak Prescott than I was at the point when I traded him to you. Like, I didn't know Doug Free was going to retire. It's not something that he, called me and said, hey, man, I know you were real big on Dak Prescott in your dynasty drafts. I'm about to leave. Like, he didn't say that. So, Derek Carr, he might be going down the list. I do think that I'm really torn on whether or not my mind keeps going different ways. Like, I don't think Crabtree can perform to the level he did last year. Third year is when wide receivers typically jump ahead. That should be where Amari Cooper falls in. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think their number 3 receiver right now is Cordero Patterson. I think that's an upgrade over Seth Roberts, who did nothing but drop touchdowns in the end zone. So, I mean, that's a good thing. You get Jared Cook to come in at tight end, who will... I think everybody's just done with Jared Cook. I don't think it's like a trendy draft thing anymore to think Jared Cook is going to bust out. So with that said, by the end of the year, Jared Cook will have 101 receptions, 1,500 yards, and 17 touchdowns, and everyone will collectively just be like, what the hell happened? And Jared Cook was like, oh, when you're all waiting for me to show up, well, I just decided to do it all at once when you were off me. Matt Ryan, I think Kyle Shanahan-less. I think that they are going to go more heavy with Freeman, but I think there's going to be a lot of passing, especially between Ryan and Julio. And we talked about Winston, so step to the plate. That's the thing I just said. I don't know what... I was hoping that would be like an obvious segue where you'd be like, oh, that means it's my turn to talk now. Instead, it was this moment of like, what's he talking? I don't know what he's talking about. Is he talking to Matt Ryan?
I was trying to think of a baseball metaphor, but looking at the list, I don't really have one. So I'm going
to knock it out of the park. I mean, that's simple stuff right there.
You're fired. Jared Cook called. He said "F you."
Well, all right.
I'll bring up just a couple names going from 11 to 15 that I like to possibly jump up. Obviously, I mentioned my crush, Big Ben, but being a little bit more realistic, I'll say Kirk Cousins. I like the possibility of him. I think Matt Stafford could get a lot of garbage time points. I love the fact that they love Amir Abdullah, the Lions, but I don't think from a fantasy perspective anybody should love Amir Abdullah, so I think it's going to be pass, and then some more pass. And Tyrod Taylor, if he gets Decker, which obviously I don't think Decker's going to happen because it would be in the division unless the Jets do end up releasing him. Macklin might help a little bit. Here's my problem with Tyrod Taylor. I've had this since he came in because I liked him when he went to Buffalo. I said he's going to be the starter. I want to put Tyrod Taylor in the top 10 every year because he runs, he passes, and he's got an okay supporting cast. But then I see him do Tyrod Taylor things. So that's the guy that I want to be in the top 10, but I don't think is going to happen. I will make a bold prediction. Is it time for bold predictions on the quarterbacks?
It's always time.
I'm going to make a prediction that number 27 and number 28 on this list, which is Brian Hoyer and Josh McCown, that one of them will be top 15, meaning 15. But one of them will be top 15. For Hoyer, he plays well everywhere he goes. He just has to stay healthy. And for Josh McCown, he plays well everywhere he goes. He just has to stay healthy. Only problem is, who are they throwing to? I mean, Decker's going to be gone. McCown has Enunwa as number one. Also somebody on my team that I couldn't trade away for Beans, but now I'm very happy. So, haha, to all our league mates.
I don't know if I'd be that happy yet.
Well, I'm happy. He's got more value now, at least. And Brian Hoyer, you would hope. Brian Hoyer is throwing to Carlos Hyde.
Pierre Garçon.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
But that's one of those things. People say that, but for the past 5 years, he's been like top 15 in receptions as an average.
I take that back. Actually, that brings more credence to my point because I just remembered who's there in San Francisco, and that would be
Shanahan.
That would be Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. If John Lynch proved anything during the draft, he is Debo, and I've mentioned this before, I know, but he is Debo from Friday. He just went up to the GM of the Bears, Pace, and went, "Yo, man, give me them picks." And like, man, my grandmama got me them picks.
No, that's exactly what happened. And
so I think
I still see people defending this.
No. I mean, no. No. I don't think. I mean, okay. Well, we thought that San Francisco was going to take him, or somebody was going to jump up. Good, great, jump up, take him. You had Solomon Thomas there. You had. Okay, I'm not going to go off on a rant. I don't have any more Debo references, but yeah, with the idea of Garcon there, I couldn't tell you who the number 2 is. Bruce Ellington is there.
Yeah, so they've got Ellington.
He's a person.
Curly.
Okay, Curly. Maybe Bolden comes back for his 16th season, 15th. But I think he has potential to be a top 15 guy. And my other bold prediction is I'm making all kind of bold predictions here. So my other bold prediction is that, well, if I could see where he's ranked because I keep clicking the wrong button. There we go. Is that the Chicago quarterbacks, as I run into my desk here, Mike Glennon and Mitchell Trubisky will finish lower than Deshaun Watson, whoever starts in Cleveland, and either Patrick Mahomes or
who will probably take 4 snaps and still finish with more fantasy points.
Well, you know what? I had a joke I was going to set up there, and I didn't know where it was going. So, yeah, I will say that Deshaun Watson and whoever starts in Cleveland will be ahead of whoever starts in Chicago because, as mentioned before, Chicago, what do they have? I mean, granted, we're going into different positions of Jordan Howard, but...
Well, they don't have any draft picks, I know that.
When Jay Cutler doesn't want to be there, they don't even have that gold chain.
They have nothing.
Ice Cube, I think,
they have Jordan Howard, who they're going to run into the ground by the 8th week.
And he's going to be... although I will say something. Chicago drafted...
yes, tell us who Chicago drafted, please.
Chicago drafted Tariq Cohen. And
I swear it was Lightning McQueen. I thought that's who they drafted. That would have made more sense than anybody that they drafted for their team this year.
I think Tariq... Because it's not going to be Jeremy Langford. We know what he is. He is who we thought he is. I think Tariq Cohen could have value after Jordan Howard's legs fall off. So,
by all means, someone do that. I hope someone takes him. Whoever drafts Tariq Cohen is taking a page right out of the Chicago Bears playbook. That's all I'm going to say.
You know what? I'm going to try
and
draft him. I'm going to try and draft him.
So I think there's one quarter. I know this was interesting, and I mentioned this to you. And there's no perfection when it comes to grades or ratings or things like this. I do find it interesting that Carson Wentz and Cody Kessler finished so close together in terms of Pro Football Focus's quarterback grades for last year. They were both in the 20s, but I think, and the way I explain Kessler is like, yeah, he's not a guy you're drafting for your fantasy league, but he could do well enough that it wouldn't shock me if they might not have similar numbers, but I just don't think the gap is as far as a lot of people might, just because it's the Browns. If it had been any team other than the Browns, if it had been Carson Wentz on the Browns, we'd still be dealing with the same thing. Everyone would say, Wentz is horrible, they should have never drafted. Like, there's no winning with the Cleveland Browns. Another guy just barely didn't make the list. I currently have him as my quarterback, never in this lifetime, and that's Christian Hackenberg.
I was waiting for that. See, that's the joke I was going to make. Ah, damn, I screwed it up. I was going to make a Christian Hackenberg.
Humorously enough, speaking about the off-season and how you can't trust like what guys are seeing and doing in OTAs, it's embarrassing when there's a beat reporter saying Christian Hackenberg looks awful. I'm trying to find the report. Hackenberg has struggled through OTAs. So, ostensibly, when guys are running around in their shorts like they did when they were 7, he can't hang.
If nothing else, on the audio version of the podcast and going through video now, if people get nothing else out of this, at least right now, you were dead on Christian Hackenberg.
Yes, I was right about Hackenberg. I was right about Prescott. Nothing else but those two.
Now let me fall. By the way, the Dak Prescott thing, I would have never had to trade for him if I would have been able to draft him. So screw you, because you got him. You picked him. But if Christian Hackenberg starts and does well, are we going to have a podcast going forward, or are you just going to retire?
My take would be McCown starts 7 games, looks really good. People are talking about the Jets. They're 3-6, 3-5. I forget how to do math at this point in the day. Game 8, McCown goes down. They're like, let's put Hackenberg in. He's going to suck it up all the way to the first-round pick, so we're not going to have to worry about that. I can read the future when it comes to Christian Hackenberg, and his future is, if they allow him to be the water boy for Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, that's what's going to happen. I didn't mention my bold prediction. I don't know how bold this is, and it is kind of trendy, but I can see this happening. My bold prediction is Eli Manning finishes as a top 7 quarterback.
That's a really, really good, and I don't know if you mentioned it being trendy. Is that bold? I mean, does that qualify as bold, thinking of his offense?
Well, I mean, when you're looking at a guy who finished as, like, the 19th quarterback last year, and you look at how the offense, 20th quarterback, and I mean, you look at how on the offense it was literally like a wreck. I'm trying to think back, and think about the Giants offense, and it was Sterling Shepard was good for a couple of games, and then Odell Beckham. That's it. That's all I remember about the Giants offense last year. Nothing. I don't remember anything about Eli. But going back to a lot of how I mentioned with Rodgers and Luck, and some of these other teams with unstable running games and poor offensive lines, maybe not Green Bay, but the other ones. The only thing that concerns me with this is the Giants have a defense that I'm very bullish on. And if the defense is that good, you just kind of wonder how much Eli is going to have to. I guess what I'm saying is, how much of a correlation is there between how Eli's defense plays and what Eli's fantasy numbers are? And I'm going to do this. I'm going to run a little bit of a regression analysis just to see if there's strong evidence that suggests the quality of his defense impacts his fantasy performance. Then Eli could end up dropping on this list to a sub-20 quarterback. But if it has no heavy relation whatsoever, then I think this offense is going to be predicated on passing the ball. And when you look at the team and you're talking about Odell Beckham, Brandon Marshall, Sterling Shepard, and now Evan Ingram, who is a wide receiver built like a tight end. Well, he's just a big, freakishly athletic kid. That's the best arrangement of talent he's had probably since they won the Super Bowl. And he didn't have Beckham for the Super Bowl.
True, yeah, but man, you know what? Forget my Big Ben thing. I might put Eli in that top 5 now.
I think the thing with Eli is so right now the average fantasy player, and you can't consider us with that because I'm putting out fantasy content year-round. I'm reading fantasy content year-round. So I'm not the average fantasy player. The average fantasy player has not touched a thought on their fantasy football teams yet. It's June. When August comes around and they start to read about how so many people are on the Eli Manning bandwagon, you're going to see his ADP right now, which I just did a draft today, and I got him in the 10th or 11th round, and I reached a little bit. I think you might see a correction of as much as 3 rounds. And at that point, yeah, I mean, he still becomes a value if he turns out that good. But the risk is also there that if he doesn't, now you've jumped up 3 more rounds and passed on guys just thinking Devonta Freeman, Amir Abdullah, Dalvin Cook, guys that have potential. Not Devonta Freeman, Devonta Parker.
I was going to say,
Devontae
wow.
Parker, yeah. Freeman's not falling out of the top of the second round, and usually it's well before that. But there's the potential there for that to happen. I think there are some concerns, and that's why I want to see what the numbers say, because I think too many people focus singularly on, well, what is this offense set up like? What do my number projections say? But football is a team sport, right? I mean, if the defense lets up a ton of points, you get Drew Brees, where you know he's going to have 4,000 plus passing yards, touchdown total is going to be high. You know that is going to be consistent year in and year out. But in a situation where the defense could be good, and after they've scored a couple of touchdowns, and God forbid that 2 of the 3 that they score happen to be run in, there's no need for Eli Manning to throw the ball. So I think there's definitely something to be said about slowing the roll a little bit off of that. I know that I said that that's my bold take, and it is for right now, but I want to see, I'm thinking the next time I do these at the top of July, I'm hoping I have all that regression done, because I just don't have time to do it. But I have a feeling it might say something to the extent that his defense behind him does say a lot about how he finishes offensively.
I think that's very, very possible. The one thing I'll say about Eli Manning is he has Brandon Marshall. He has Odell Beckham. I could see there being an issue with targets and with, give me the ball, wham, the diva thing. I mean, Brandon Marshall's worn out his welcome on 3 teams already, so it's not like it's out of the question that there's issues there, and with ODB as well. Hopefully he doesn't attack the net this year or put his head through a wall.
True.
So we'll have to see that as it goes. I was just looking up to see if I could find Christian Hackenberg's Twitter on my phone, and I was going to end the podcast with giving that as my handle. So unfortunately, I will not be able to because my phone is having issues connecting to my Wi-Fi. So just I guess tag us and hashtag Hackenberg.
So you're saying that your phone is basically the same quality that Christian Hackenberg is. Just can't get the job done.
In shorts. Yes.
In shorts. All right, well, that'll wrap it up for our quarterback rankings. Check us out soon. We'll have our running back rankings out not too long after this, hopefully. In the meantime, you can check us out on researchfantasy.com. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Find us on Facebook at Research Fantasy, on Twitter at Research and Win. BC?
You can find me at 1SF Podcast, and if your Wi-Fi is working, I am there for you on the Facebook as well. 1SF Podcast. We talk about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, professional wrestling. I tweet a lot during hockey games, including when I am drunk. So thank you, Fireball Whiskey. And as we always end, reprise the theme song and roll the credits. Hashtag Hackenberg.